Okay, right. We put our evolution to creation behind us, and we're moving on. We hopefully will have proved to a certain degree that we can have confidence in Christians that there is an intelligence behind the universe. But of course, that doesn't then tell us what that intelligence is like. And so this next section will really deal with, well, if there is a God, what kind of God is he? And can we know him? And how do we know him? And hopefully we'll maybe we'll spend a little time and answering some of those questions. But it's quite a tricky situation because in reality there's so much about God that we not only don't know, but we'll never know. Because we are human and he is divine or deity. It's a totally different ballgame. And if you were going to some strange country, which some of you have in times past, I met some strange people speaking a strange language, you can find it quite difficult sometimes to communicate. And that's just with human beings, communicating with human beings. And that's Kettering, go to Kettering.
That's just a folk from Scotland.
For Scotland, yeah, Scotland means Kettering. So you can understand, you know, if we find difficulty communicating with our own humankind, how much more is it difficult to understand who God is and how difficult is it for God to communicate with us? We look at lots of the animals around us, and some people have got nice pets, dogs and cats and stuff, and they're quite happy to say that they communicate quite efficiently with those, and vice versa. But I'm sure there's a lot they don't know about us, as well as a lot we don't know about them. And so we're dealing with a God. If we call him, we've given him that name, we call him a God, the ultimate God. How do we get to know this God, and just what does he, how does he reach out to us and deal with that? So after examining the evidence, the reasonable conclusion that we come to is that the evidence points to a supreme intelligence that has always existed, and we call this intelligence God. That's what we call him God. There's a reason why we call him God, and we'll come to that hopefully later on. Therefore, we can conclude, from a positive position, can conclude that we know that there is a God. Now, we may not be able to prove it to other people, but we've been able to prove it hopefully to our own satisfaction that we believe that there is a God. And because we can see the evidence of his existence, we believe we can see the evidence of his existence all about us in nature. But remember, a lot of people look at the same stuff we're looking at, and they come to totally different conclusions. So that's an interesting thing. Hopefully, come up. We'll deal with it also a little bit later.
Do we use a process called elimination?
Well, that's what we've been doing.
Cases?
Yes, that's what we've been doing really. And this, in the last studies we had over this last couple of weeks, you know, we've been looking at exactly the same evidence that those who don't believe in God look at. But we've got totally different conclusions.
See, no other theory fits the bill as far as
this is as far as we're, yes, that's as far as we're concerned. And based upon that, that's how we live. That's what we believe in, and that's how we live. Based upon their conclusions, they have come to different conclusions, and therefore they live differently and think differently. And our job, as far as God's concerned, God says, well, if you know who I am, and you know what I've done for you in Christ, then we have a responsibility to share that knowledge, to help those who can't see understand that. Now, when you think about it, in dealing with human beings, okay, there's not a lot of people who actually willingly, knowingly believe in a lie. Okay, I'm not talking about those who are in court at the moment because of all the stuff they've been doing, who not only know the lie, but they get the consequence of it. I'm saying, as far as a lot of people, what you think about, whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, the conclusions you come to, you believe is true. You believe that you believe in the truth, and that's a valid thing. Otherwise, you'd be stupid, because if you didn't believe what you believe is true, why do you bother believing it? I could never understand that not the modern Bishop of Durham, but one of the old bishops of Durham, who turned around and says, I don't believe Jesus was a real person. They talk about the myth of Christ. And I've talked to other ministers in different religious groups who have come to the same conclusion, I don't believe in Jesus. And I said, well, why are you in church? Why are you a minister? Why are you telling people that you believe in God and helping them to believe in God if you don't believe in it? I don't see the point. And what a lot of them say, it's a social gospel. You know, it would be nice to people, we're helping them out. But that's hypocrisy. Why do you do that? If you don't believe in God, why bother going to church? If you don't believe in God, why have a proper funeral? If you don't believe in God, you know, all us things.
But Peter says there's such a thing as willful ignorance.
Well, yes, there is that's a good point. There are people who are ignorant, basically, because they don't know the truth. Obviously, the word itself, ignorant, you know, we're all ignorant. I've got a light bulb that needs, not a light, a whole light thing that needs fixing. Now, when I was younger, I would be fixing that. But I took the thing off today, I looked at it, and there's about 10 wires up there, all going in different directions. I thought, nah, I'll leave that to somebody who knows what they're doing. It would have been one of the simpler ones, you know, a couple of wires coming through, and I think, okay, no problem, I can do that, no problem. But when there's a whole bunch of wires coming from all over the place, and you know if you get one of them wrong, you're going to be in bad trouble, you know, leave it to the expert. So
you weren't willfully ignorant, you were just ignorant.
Just ignorant. I know my limitations. I know my limitations. So, you know, there's certain skills, a certain fellow with Bernard. There's a lot about carpentry, and I just don't know. For years, I loved electronics. I loved electronics. And for years, I spent a lot of time trying to play with it, trying to learn about it. But I've got, like John, I've got a kind of dyslexia. I can see the basics, and I can see where I want to be, but if I'm right in the middle, it just doesn't want to do anything. So it's there's a ignorance there, which stops me getting from A to B. But that's a good thing, and if you recognise your limitations, that's a big help. There's a lot of people who are ignorant, and they don't recognise, they think they know everything.
They couldn't wire it anyway.
Yeah. That's true. You know, there are a lot of people who are ignorant, and they don't realise that they're ignorant. Or they wouldn't admit to being ignorant, because they think they know everything. Usually, they're aged between 15 and 25. But, you know, there's a lot of people like that. But in reality, you know, every one of us has got certain areas where we just don't know.
We just don't know.
And we've got to be honest with that, and that's the real key, being honest. But in a search for truth, we've also got to be honest. If we come across the truth, then we need to grasp hold of it and do something about it. You know, if you use that illustration as a good illustration, you know, if I recognise, if I stick that wire to that wire and it's going to put the rest of the house in darkness, I don't act on that. But if I was something simpler, and I could know that I could put this and put it together and nothing better, then I would do it, because I would be using, you know, the truth as a hopefully reality.
Doesn't common sense come into this?
Yes.
Oh, right.
And a lot of people don't have. That.
Well, Brother Crossway used to say there are two kinds of ignorance. There's ignorant ignorance, and there's educated ignorance.
Right. And how do you define that?
Well, he was speaking about the people who don't accept the evidence before them.
Right.
Some people don't even consider the evidence.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
They don't know that they're ignorant.
Can we slip in arrogance there then? Can we slip
well, I'm sure that there's an educated arrogance sometimes.
Yeah. If you don't know you're ignorant, but you might be quite aggressive in thinking you know the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a real bad situation to be in. I was talking to Jehovah's Witness a while ago. One of them, 10 times pastors, said, you know, I don't want to know what you're saying. I said, well, why not? Because unless you're open to at least hearing the arguments for and against, you've got a closed mind. If you've got a closed mind, you finish before you start.
Yeah.
And you know, you might as well be dead if you've got a closed mind, because while there's life, there's hope. And while there's breath, hopefully we can learn something. Every day I learn something. Especially if we get a new phone. Goodness gracious me. That's a nightmare. That's a learning experience, isn't it? And you know, so sometimes some people say, I don't want a phone because I don't want to even go there. Because they're learning car. So there's an ignorance, okay.
My mum's Irish Catholic and all that, right? And I say to her about, read Bible schools. I don't need to. I just know.
Well, you see, in one sense, that's a good example, because usually when you're younger, in the old days of the Catholic Church, they would actually say to you, you don't need to read the Bible,
That's right.
because we'll tell you when it's read. And as a matter of fact, not only, if you go back far enough, they wouldn't just tell you, you know, we'll tell you. They'd say, if I find you with a Bible, that's a death penalty.
Yeah.
You know, you don't read the Bible, because then you start questioning us. And so therefore, a lot of the older generation come up and trust what the priest has said. And the priest says, you don't need to bother with that. Then that's what they'll believe. And sadly, there's another element to that also, because whenever you move from what you know to what you don't know, you have a confidence crisis. You actually, if you start anything for the first time, that first couple of days to doing anything new, you're very, very gentle and slow and careful what you do, because you're in a totally different environment that you're not familiar with. And somebody comes along and says, well, come on, get on with it. And say, I can't, because I don't know enough yet. You know what I mean? So even in religious terms or in philosophy and stuff like that, when we learn something new and it's brand new, it's sometimes easier to say, I don't want to go there, because we know it's going to take effort and it's going to take hassle to get to the point where we become piece of cake. Yeah. I used to work on both in the shoe trade,
Yes.
and also in building engines. And the first time I was putting on a track building an engine, you got a certain part of the engine to build, and the track's going down, and you get on at your point, say point A, and by the time you've done your little bit, you're way back down, and the people behind you say, come on, because they're with their bits. And the pressure and the stress, you're tearing the air out.
Yeah.
But after about a month, you're saying to the guy in front, come on, because you know it now. You're in familiar territory. But that first month is a nightmare, because you're all fingers and thumbs. And it's like that almost mentally. We're almost mentally fingers and thumbs when we move from what we're comfortable with, what we know, and open up to something new. So that makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Remember Jenny Martin, don't you? When Jenny Martin, was Roman Catholic, went to the priest to ask about baptism, he said, you don't have to bother about that, just don't bother about it. Just leave it alone.
All our friends.
She thinks I don't believe in Mary and the Virgin birth and all that, right? Because I won't pray to, say the Hail Mary and all that, and them kind of things. Yeah. She thinks I don't believe in it, and I'm saying, I do believe in it. I do believe that.
But it really, a lot of it is when you're in a comfort zone, all your friends, and all, we've had experience where a Jew has become a Christian, and literally their family had done a funeral service for him. And when they go knock on the door, to come visit the family, he said, "You're dead. No point knocking our door. You, as far as we're concerned, you no longer exist." That's a comfort zone. A lot of us have never experienced that kind of trauma when we've come to Christ. But for a lot of people, that's sometimes the depths that you need to go to be able to do that. The Apostle Paul must be horrific for him. You imagine him going back to some of the guys who used to take around and grab all the Christians and say, hey, come on down for a pint. I'll have water. But anyway, you're a traitor. You've turned. We're after you now. You're one of them. You lose all your friends.
I once had a discussion with the head of the Mormon building program in this country. His name was Joseph Smith, incidentally, strange to say. And he said to me, I've never met anybody who knew so much about Mormonism who was not a Mormon. I said, it's because I know so much about Mormonism that I'm not a Mormon.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's difficult. It is difficult for people to make that move. And even when they do make that move into Christianity, sometimes we in Christianity put them off. Because we're not being what we ought to be. And therefore the move there is something where they've had support, they've had schools, they've had all sorts of stuff they can do and go to, lots of friends, lots of things happening. and they come to being a Christian. You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't what? You know, who are you people? A minority, you know. And so you've got all that mental trauma to deal with, and it's not easy. And that's, well, Jesus said it would be easy.
I'm still not going on the internet.
Eh?
I'm still not going.
You're still not going. We've been trying to get him on the internet for years.
5 years.
So there's an ignorance where you just don't know because you've never come across something before, and you've got an ignorance which is you know what it is and you don't want to.
Shut your eyes against.
Yeah. And some people, Nietzsche, he became the real anti-God person he was because he saw the hypocrisy in so many of the religious people he met. I mean, he was a great philosopher, and he just went down the wrong path because the people who were supposed to stand up for Christ were just not doing it. Gandhi, he had a kind of similar experience when he went to America. He studied by Christ because he was interested, but he was badly put off by a lot of people who claimed Christians. You know, so even on the outside, you know, ignorance is bliss, and you come in and you think, wow, what's going on here? What have I got myself into?
That started, Graham, when he wanted to go to a Church of England service in Delhi as an Indian, and they turned him away.
Yeah.
So he abandoned Western dress and put on the Indian dress.
But sometimes, I mean, for the wrong reasons, and for sometimes for we would look at as trivial reasons, people are put off, you know. Even today, people say, well, I'm not going to go to church, there's a bunch of hypocrites. There's room for one more.
That's right, always room for
always room for one more. You know, but it's just the way it is. But sadly, isn't it sad that that's how people view the church?
Yeah.
A bunch of hypocrites? Wow, you know, that's a problem, really. But anyway, so there's definite ignorance and there's ignorance that when we know something, we deliberately say, no, not for me. You know, just turn our back on it. But God has truly revealed himself to man, and we know every time what it's like. That's a real key, you know. We talk about God existing, but then, you know, somebody says, okay, where is he? You know, you've got a problem, haven't you? How do I know what you're thinking at this moment? When some of you might be thinking, oh, we should hurry up so I can go home and make chips. I can't tell you that unless you say, oh, we should hurry up and go, you know. I don't know what you're thinking. How do we know what God's thinking? What God is like if we don't? You know what I mean? If he doesn't communicate. And that's going to be a real key. So we know, how do we determine what God is like?
I was taking Jack for a walk the other day, and on the bike and that as well, even though in front of me, and there was the monk coming down, walking as well, you know, like, sort of, and Jack sort of went up close to him, and then he come back and goes, is that gone? You know?
It's a bit of monk.
Yeah.
Seen the follow that. Okay. Jesus in John 17 says, this is eternal life, that they might know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. Okay? So Jesus is our link to God, to help us understand God more completely. Now, there's lots of things that we talk about as the character or the nature of God, or that which is God, his natural attributes. And as the thing progresses, we're going to touch on quite a few of these. But it's 1 Corinthians, God reigns supreme over all things, 1 Corinthians says. God has great riches for his children, Psalmist 104 says. God is universal, Psalm 22 says. God is transcendently above all, he's above everything, 1 Timothy 6 says. God is invisible, Hebrews 11 verse 27 says. And God is the author of all truth. So we'll touch on a few of these things as they come along, and hopefully it'll be helpful. But one of the first things we talk about as far as God is concerned is a word that we don't come across very much, because it usually transcends our understanding. The transcendence of God. God's transcendence, what does that mean? That which is above the limits of knowledge and experience of the material or of the material universe. God, technically, is outside of absolutely everything that we can see, that we can know, that we can touch, that we can feel, and will ever experience. God is outside of our understanding. And because He is God. We talk about Him, we're going to talk about Him being eternal. We've got absolutely no idea of eternalness. You know, Frank's 91, he's almost eternal for the You know, 90, I met a guy who was 93 the other day. Wow, you know. But that, in the depths of time, is a speck in the ocean.
Yeah.
And then we say God's eternal.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean by eternal? That's mind-boggling. What is eternal?
Well,
So that kind of thing.
if we could understand God, we wouldn't need Him.
We've got, we would have got ourselves. That's right. So the thing is, in our striving to understand who God is, because we're human beings and because we like to have a grip on things, what we tend to do is chop God up into nice little bite-sized pieces and then put him in a nice box.
Yeah.
Now we know.
Make Him in our own image.
Basically, yeah. We take the bits that we understand, bits that we like, and that's the God that we end up with.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this later on as well, because I know it's a slide later on. But J.B. Phillips says, your God is too small. And no matter how the depths of the riches that you delve into in your relationship with God, that's going to be stamped on your deathbed at the end of the day. No matter what you learn about God, no matter how deep you've searched after God, no matter what stone you've looked under to find some aspect of God, put it all together and you still won't have even touched the hem of what and who God is. Okay? Some of us are quite clever. Some of us think we know lots of stuff. It's only when we stand side by side with somebody else that we realise that quite often we know so little compared with even what he knows. And that's again dealing with human nature. In a relationship, one day we're going to stand before God and then we'll have our eyes opened. But that, you know, there's absolutely nothing really will compare us for that day. Prepare us for that day. Because even the best that we can think of, even the deepest we can think of, even the greatest we can think of, we just are going to touch. Frank will finish this one off for me. But I think it was Helen Keller. Who, or somebody who was blind.
Blind and deaf.
Okay.
And dumb.
So who was the one?
That was Helen Keller.
Who was the one who received her sight?
Sorry?
Who got an operation, got her sight back? Oh, it wasn't Helen Keller, was it?
No,
Somebody else.
she was blind. She
There was
remained blind.
another girl who lived in the country, but she was blind from an accident at birth. And the doctors operated on her. And in the meantime, her mother had been trying to describe to her.
That's the story. It's the little girl.
Yeah.
When they said that when she was 8 years of age, they would be able to perform an operation that would restore her sight. And after the surgery, as the days went by, they removed layers of the eyes, covering or protecting her eyes. And then finally they took off the last piece, and she was looking out of the window at the garden. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me that it was so beautiful?
Yeah.
And the mother said, I tried to tell you, but you couldn't understand.
That's right. See, all the time mother had been trying to tell
I thought you were going to talk about
her.
Helen Keller. Eventually, when they managed to get through to communicate with a woman who was deaf and blind and dumb, she said, I knew about him all the time, but I didn't know what he was called.
Yeah, interesting.
She said.
She actually got a degree and eventually learned to communicate.
Did she
I
speak?
Yeah.
Sorry? Eventually, yes.
I had another very interesting book that I read years ago, and unfortunately I gave away, and I've never seen again. And I think it was called Scallywag. And it was talking about somebody up in the, I think it was Yorkshire Dales, who had real bad cerebral palsy. So bad, it was just couldn't. He was bunged into a home basically, as they did back then, and he had certain carers who would be supposedly looking after him in his period in there. But he had a real nasty carer, and he loved to hear singing. And a couple of times a year, the local church would bring all the people from the home down to this place to hear the local choir. and something he really looked forward to. And the person who cared for him knew that he looked forward to it. So when the night came on these occasions, he would make all sorts of excuses why this young man couldn't go. And he deliberately stopped them going. But there was one other person in the care home who was also handicapped, but he could communicate, and he found over time that he actually could talk to this guy. And eventually they wrote the book, which is his life story. And it was amazing. Here was this guy who couldn't normally do any kind of speech. This other guy had learned what he was actually, or nods or whatever, learned to communicate. And out of that, they then told the story of all the bad stuff that this carer had done over many, many years in that situation. You know, totally amazing, really. Anyway, back to God. God transcends. Okay, He is beyond. So even when we do the most Bible study we can, if we look into the heavens and everything else and see the power, the awesomeness, the glory of God, we won't even come anywhere near getting close to who God really is. So we're going to touch the hem of His garment, hopefully, in these lessons. Okay, so God, one of the aspects of God is transcendence, being out there, above there, other, is this idea of being totally other. He is totally outside our experience. We had a conversation a while ago about people want to believe in aliens, and the fact that they spend a lot of money looking for aliens and want to send messages to aliens. Well, God was an alien, and instead of us looking for Him, He came looking for us. And instead of us trying to find out where He lives and coming to see Him, He came to see us. And through Jesus, we catch a glimpse of who He is. And it is only a glimpse, but He is not of this world. He is totally outside of our experience in every practical way. I mean, you think of the atomic structure of practically everything in this world. You think of the complexity of the DNA and RNA and how we're made. We're talking about a super brain. We're talking about a super creator. We're talking about somebody who is... I've seen the work that I do when I make something. God is far way above my experience and my ability. Okay? And that's just it. So the transcendence of God simply means God is above us, He is beyond us, He's unreachable in His character and in His person. It simply means He excels us, He surpasses us, He's independent of us, He is all-sustaining, He is self-sustaining within Himself. He needs nothing but Himself, technically. Now, we sometimes in our humanity think, well, I went to church on Sunday and I praised God, I bet He enjoyed that. He really needed that, didn't He? He needed my input just to make his life a better day. I don't think so. God doesn't need us. Neither was He obligated to create us. But He created us by a choice of His will. And that's an amazing thing. God wanted to make you and me. He wanted you and me to experience Him. He didn't need us for Him to experience us. He wants us, and He created us to experience Him. And He didn't have a missing part in His life that was, there's something missing. I need some human beings. Like some people need a dog in their lives. That's something missing. I need a dog. That's not what it's all about, okay? God decided to make a creation and to fill that creation with people who ultimately would communicate and have a relationship with Him. It wasn't our sin, nor in our sin is God obligated or obliged to save us. Now, we must grapple with these issues. God doesn't need man, but really, man needs God. We dig ourselves a hole with sin. We find ourselves up to our eyeballs in it, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. We can't take those words back. We can't take those deeds back. We can't put the clock back. And so we need God to make us right again. And God chose to create us. He has chosen us in our sin to save us, and has promised that He will do exactly that. Okay? So God wants to step into humanity and do for us what we can't do for ourselves. He wants us to get the best out of this life. And He wants us to grow and experience lots of things in this life. And through those things, we will develop and be the best that we can be. But God, at the end of the day, doesn't really gain anything from us, or from anyone, or anything outside of the universe. God is self-existent and self-sustaining. He doesn't need anything. Every one of us needs something outside of ourselves. I've met lots of people in my life who say, well, I'm a self-made man. You know, I've drawn myself up by my own bootstraps. And I just say to them, that's the good news, I say to them, when did you make your shoes? He says, what do you mean? I say, well, if you're a self-made man, and you don't need anybody, obviously you must have made your own shoes. No, I bought my shoes. Oh, you mean you needed somebody to make the shoes for you to buy? Oh, where do you get your jacket from? How long did it take you to make a jacket? What do you mean, you want clothes as well? And I see you've got some bread on the table. When do you get the bread? When do you make your bread? Popped it out the supermarket. Well, goodness, there's hundreds of people that you're actually depending on for your very existence. Look at that typhoon, that situation in the Philippines. You know, one woman was on the television tonight and says, I'm not interested in the television, I don't want a mobile phone, I just want some food.
That's right.
You know, her priorities the week before might have been, I want that new television, I want that new mobile. And now she says, forget that, I want some food. Isn't it interesting how her priorities change? How she sees a need, and she needs us, others, to supply the need. Nobody is a self-made man. We like to think we are, but at the end of the day, we've had the care and nurture of our parents, we've had a school system, an education system, which a lot of the world don't have. We've got lots of stuff, we've even got energy people who keep putting energy bills up, but still we plug the light on and switch the light on to get the benefit of it. You know, we pay for it, alright, but we depend upon them creating the electricity. But God is a transcendent God. Romans 11 verse 34 to 36 says, this is Paul at the end of a beautiful passage dealing with his relationship with his own people, how God's going to save the Jews exactly the same way as He's going to save the Gentiles. He says, it's almost amazing. He lays out 3 chapters about how precious the Jews are to God, and how Christ died for them, and they need to be right with God through Christ. And he ends up looking back at what he's written, and almost like saying, goodness, have you read what I've just written? Isn't that amazing? Oh, what wonderful God we have. How great His riches, His wisdom, and His knowledge. How impossible is it for us to understand His decisions and His methods. Chapter 9, he says, you know, that Esau and Jacob, did they have a choice? In the womb, while they were still perfect, before they were born. He says, I chose the second one instead of the first one. I did this, not because we're good, not because we're bad in the womb, they weren't. I made a choice. And that's why the Jewish people became the Jewish people, through that line. And obviously up to that point they were quite happy because God made all the right choices. But now when He starts bringing these Gentiles into the salvation, they're thinking God's made the wrong choice. You mean He was right with all your choices worked out for you, but now I'm moving on to everybody. You say, oh, that's bad news that is. We were the chosen people.
Graham, when I read that statement, I have a picture in my mind of Paul walking up and down in the room, and Sextus sitting there writing it down, you know.
Yeah.
Paul's dictating to him. Read that back to me. Did I actually say that?
No. It's just an almost like an amazement.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. What a God we have. We can bring about Jewish salvation and Gentile salvation through the sacrifice of His Son. Whoa, what a wonderful God. And that's brilliant. That's the kind of thing we do. But that's, you know, how often in our day-to-day relationship with God do we waken up and look up and say, wow, you know, God, you're brilliant. It's a good time of year, isn't it? when you see all the colours of the trees and the leaves falling, and you think, wow, you know, God's amazing. God created a system that replicates itself every year after year after year.
Didn't you do well?
Didn't he? Yeah, didn't he do well? He deserves a pat on the back, really. So, who can know what the Lord is thinking? Who knows enough to be his counselor? Who could ever give him so much that he could have to pay it back? For everything comes from him, everything exists by his power as intended for his glory. To him be glory forevermore. That's just, you know, mind-blowing. When he sees and understands the God of creation, the God of relationship through Christ, Paul just absolutely overwhelmed. Wow. And that's the God. And if we could waken up every morning or every day with that thought in mind, I think we'd live a different day. We'd have different aspirations. And we'll be more appreciative and more thankful of the God we live. So God is a self-entity. He's self-contained. He is above us. He is beyond us. He doesn't just need us. And we, in our humanity, really need a higher view of God than we sometimes have. We need to lift God up. And the funny thing is, if we lift God up, guess what will happen? He'll lift us up. You know? So much of life is spent in bringing others down. But when the others come down, we haven't advanced that much. But if we can help others to go up, hopefully they will help us to achieve that. And I was quite proud of my daughter one time. Well, more than one time, but because she had a real boss who was a real pain. And when she first went to see him, they're talking about what they wanted to do, and he didn't like the idea of her coming in to be part of his team because he saw her as a threat. And so she said to him, look, I want to do my best in order to make you look good. So if you can help me be the best that I can be in this situation, then you are going to get benefit. Even though you haven't done anything, you'll automatically benefit. Because people will think, wow, look what they've got done. He must be a good boss. You know? But that didn't get through them. But anyway, that's really, you know, if it's not just to make me look good, if I can do the best I can be with your help, then surely I can enable you to be the best that you can be. And when you're going up the ladder, it's guaranteed you'll meet others coming back down. Be nice to them on the way back down, because you meet them again, because when they come back up again, you're going down. So there's an element of self-interest in that as well, okay? If we're going to think about God, we must realize that before the creation of the world and the universe, God was perfectly blessed in himself, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The divine fellowship of love between these three persons of one essence in eternity past was perfection, perfect blessedness. Whatever God is, he doesn't need us. Whatever God is, he is self-contained. Whatever God is, perfection is part of whatever that is. Okay?
And that's there in eternity past.
Yes.
Sounds mad to say that.
Does it? Because he's outside of time, you see. We're bound in time. He's outside of time. So, when we think of back there before we were created, he was way back in eternity. Because eternal means no beginning, no end. And we're bound in time. We're parenthesis in time. It's powerful stuff, really. God didn't need man nor creation. Creation added nothing to God. You know, sometimes a weightlifter, if a person goes along to the gym occasionally and they start lifting weights, people see the difference. Wow, you've had an extra ½ inch to your biceps. Or if you go down to the restaurant all the time, wow, you've added an extra couple inches. You know, whatever you've taken in and whatever you've done physically has added something to who you are. But there's absolutely nothing that can be done in creation or outside of creation that can add anything to God, because God already is everything in himself. Okay? Duh. Just be honest, we all need something. To meet somebody who doesn't need anything is
dead.
absolutely beyond our...
He's dead.
Yeah, that's right, he doesn't need anything, he's dead. Because everybody needs something. My father used to say, when I was first became a Christian, he said, you don't do something for nothing. You always do something to get something back. You don't help people without, getting something back.
Yeah, what's in it for me?
Yeah, what's in it for you? That's what you should, when you enter a situation, that's the first thing you should do. What's in it for me? Cover your back. To meet somebody like God, to understand somebody like God, is totally outside or alien to our experience. Because he needs nothing. And that's just difficult to handle, to think about. So God is transcendence. Even, this is an odd one, even Christ and his cross, God giving his Son to die for us, added nothing to God, his deity, who God is, his divine being. It didn't add anything to his glory, even though we glorify God through the cross. The cross added nothing to God, and yet it added tremendous amount for us. On the receiving end, we benefit all the way around. But technically, even giving his Son to die for us didn't add anything to who God is, or what God is, which is a real weird concept, because the cross is everything for us. The cross makes all the difference in our world. Christ and his cross could not add to God, for God cannot be added to. It revealed him, it manifested his glory, it brought great glory from us and praise from us to his name, but that didn't add anything to his essence of being. I don't know whether you can get your head around that, but think about it. It didn't add to his essential goodness, it didn't add to his greatness, it didn't add to his holiness, it didn't add to his godliness. God has never been without whoever he is and whatever he is. He neither will he ever be without his godness. And we can't add anything to our God.
Graham?
Yep.
Doesn't the scriptures say that there is joy in heaven when a child is baptized into Christ?
That's right.
Isn't that then adding something to it?
No, what we're dealing with here that's an external. That doesn't affect who God is in his nature.
No, but it brings joy
Okay.
But
to it.
the scriptures actually say the joy, the angels in heaven,
the angels
not
are happy,
God.
not God. See, there's a distinction.
There's
I'm
not anything to
I'm
God.
sure God's happy with
there's
the
joy
angels.
among the angels in heaven when one
Yeah.
sinner repents.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's a bit like I'm trying to think of they say gold. I think maybe gold is something you can roll around stuff and it doesn't pick up anything. Mercury does that. So whatever you put it in, it isn't affected by it because it is its own solidity.
That's right.
Is just won't allow it to pick up other stuff.
Yeah.
And God, in his essence, he can see and he can experience all that, but it doesn't add anything to who he is because he's God. We'll stop there.
The scriptures say, magnify the Lord with me, but you can't magnify him. You can only increase your own view of him.
Yes. Which is an interesting.
Yes. Like, do you not grieve the Holy Spirit? Or is that another concept that's outside
well,
of it?
that's to deal with not the essence of who he is, but it's to deal with actually affecting his purpose, because his purpose is to help people to come to Christ. And if they don't come to Christ, it makes them sad. But it doesn't change who he is, his godness. Okay, I'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. But it's interesting, isn't it?
No, oh,
And there's loads of it. And, you know, in 2 years' time, we should finish this, no problem. Okay. And at the end of that,
We shan't know very much anyway.
well, no,
well, Paul says the more I know, the more I don't know.
yeah, that's right. Okay, we'll know a little bit more like him. Okay, hopefully. Okay. Frank, would you lead us to one prayer?
Heavenly Father, we're thankful that we're able